All right, welcome back to the video. So if you're here as a personal trainer for the first time, or you've been a veteran in the industry for a while, these are 5 books that you absolutely must read. Maybe you've never heard of any of them. Maybe you've read them all, which is fantastic. But we feel like, having been personal trainers ourselves for so long and now hiring so many personal trainers, these are like really essential books that I feel like help round out what a great personal trainer is. So,
and I'll add, personal training is just not an industry that you can necessarily get all the books on personal training for.
Of course.
Which other industries are. You've got to go pretty general with your education and try and find books that are going to just support all the things you need to do as a trainer. There's no just textbooks that I think are any good on how to be a PT and be a well-rounded one.
Well, what I like so much about personal trainers is they're very independent people. They're people that take initiative, go out on your own. And then part of that is self-education, right? Like most people I know that got into personal training, most of the guys that we've hired and girls that we've hired as personal trainers, there's a lot of independence to their education, right? They go out and they go, well, I was learning this thing from this person. I got this certificate here and I'm following this person and that person. They've got these interesting ideas. They kind of piece it together. Whereas like maybe you tell me you studied law, right? When you went to university for law, you probably notice, all right, here's kind of like the line that we follow. There's some deviations, there's some recommendations, but they all kind of fall in line. No one's out there studying some crazy, legal system that no one's really thought of before, and they're like getting creative with it, right? It's all kind of in a box and it's all kind of black and white, right?
Yeah, you have a textbook, right?
Right.
You just follow the format, which you don't have in training. But you're right. What it is good is that I think because there is nothing, it forces people to do some self-education.
Right.
So it becomes the norm to self-educate in personal training. If you don't do much of it, you are way behind.
Right.
In terms of being a trainer.
Yeah, and I got some stats here. We may want to fact check them, but Connor might fact check them for us. But I'm pretty sure 60%, it's either 40% or 60% of America is illiterate, right? Which means they can't read. So one of the things,
What?
They
can't read.
Yeah, they can't read. So obviously with these videos, I think what's fantastic about them is we'll describe a little bit about the book. So, but I want to, I don't know if it'll make up. What do we got here? We got 21% of adults in the US, 43 million people fall into the functionally illiterate. So it's quite a lot, which is why obviously video is a great communication tool. So apologies in advance if you at the point where you can't really understand or read these books. Maybe this video is not for you.
No, but they have audiobooks.
They have audiobooks. Never mind. All right, so you got audiobooks. So all these books that came in at different times in our life. Some are when they just got released, we read them. Some been around for a long time, and then we've got into the industry, read them. Some more specific to the industry, some less specific. But I feel like the first book here, which is the first book and the most important, is Changemaker. Now, this is a book by John Berardi, who was the founder of or co-founder of Precision Nutrition, which I believe he's no longer a part of.
No, he's a small shareholder. So I think it's about 10% ownership because he had a huge, amazing selling out and exit from it. And now he's like a minority shareholder. So he's spending his time doing other stuff.
Yeah, and arguably the most influential nutrition education system in all of health and fitness. Definitely the biggest. Now, with John's book, he just specifically wrote this after he'd retired from, or after he'd sold out of Precision Nutrition. So for John, this book was about helping, basically if you're interested in coming into the industry, or even if you spent time in the industry, the point of this was to be like, I'm interested, I want to dive in, here's your starting point. That's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be step 1, read this book, right? Or you've been in it for a while, let's make sure we're on the right path. Read this book. Understand exactly where you're at. So more than anything, I think this is the best starting point for anyone in the industry. But let me reinforce that if you have read this before, if you've been in the industry for a while, I would still recommend going back and reading this. I still got a lot of value from reading it, even after 7-8 years in the industry. But I do really think for anyone that's thinking about it or starting, it's a great starting point. Amazing book.
Yeah, I think this is the closest book we have to a textbook for trainers to learn from. And because it is such fundamentals, it's like, no matter how advanced you are, you can go back and get something out of the book. But it is incredible. I almost think that if you're brand new in the industry, you might not realize how good it is because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
But I think, if you've been in for a year or you've been up to like 5-7 years, it can be incredibly eye-opening. And I think one of the best parts of the book is it's explaining to you and opening your eyes to the fact that just training clients one-on-one is not the only way to make money. In the fitness industry. There's lots of paths you can go down. And how do you start, finding your gifts and your talents and how do you want to spend your time?
And one thing I'll add is like it's quite an interactive book. So rather than just like passively be reading the book, there's exercises in there for you to do. You need to take time away from reading it and write things down and think about your future and past, present, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of value in there because there's so much active participation in there, and it's worth investing the time in going into the book. And he's got some amazing stats in there as well about retention and selling clients and results and all this sort of stuff, which I think just out of pure interest is just fascinating to read about. So remember there's one stat in there which is like 10% adherence to a diet plan results in like a 10% loss over 12 months in body weight, which is like incredible, right? It's like even if you can just do 10% of what we tell you, you'll still manage to lose over 12 months 10% of your body weight, which if you're 100 kilos is 10 kilos, which is pretty significant. I think it just goes to show how few people actually follow the plan consistently. They might follow 50% of it for 6 months, but then they do 1% of it for the next 6 months, right? And all the weight comes back on. So some really interesting stats in there. Definitely go check that out. Second book we've got on the list here. I really like this one from a sales perspective. So this is really for people learning to have negotiations and to sell, because if you're working for yourself or if you're in personal training and getting people to buy training packs and memberships off you or any sort of coaching, even as a gym owner, this is an essential skill set you need to learn. And this book is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And Chris Voss is the former head negotiator of the FBI. So I think I want to understand, he built out the negotiation systems as well as did a lot of the high level negotiations for the FBI, no, CIA.
CIA, I think.
CIA, yeah. So
former FBI negotiator. I think FBI. Okay. I don't know. He stopped like terrorist bombings.
Isn't it the same shit?
I don't know. He stopped
What
bad
is
guys.
the difference between the CIA and the FBI?
The FBI,
the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
One is more international, so that would be CIA would be more international. FBI. Would be, he's the FBI negotiator. Okay, FBI is more like in America, someone is like in a building, like I'm gonna blow up the building unless or whatever. Give me all this money and I got hostages. You would send Chris in.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So he's got some. He's got actually a masterclass as well. His book I think is better, but he's got a masterclass where he has like you can listen to tapes of him doing live negotiations and he talks about the technique that he used. But I think it's there's still techniques I use in there every day that are like just ingrained in my vocabulary, which I would 100% recommend you using. And it's not because you're manipulating people, but it's because you're helping people. If you want to think about sales and unethical sales, ethical sales, for me, health and fitness it's all ethical, right? You're just trying to help people help themselves, help them get into better shape, overcome their own obstacles and excuses in their heads, create rationale that they can go, you know what, you're right. That makes sense. Let's begin this fitness journey. I think having more tools in the toolbox to create that outcome is amazing. And I think this is one of the best books I've read on this stuff. And I've read a lot of books, a lot of resources on this stuff. And I think Chris has fantastic stuff. And I think it's proven in the most like high level, how much more high level negotiation can it get between, hey, I got 10 hostages here and I'm about to kill all of them. Like what are higher stakes than that? So an amazing book. And now he's progressed into the business world. So he kind of loops in some corporate application as well, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think most trainers have an aversion to picking up a sales book, which probably is a good thing because they probably need to practice sales before they get the book. But what's so good about this is like it's not a sales book.
Yeah,
it's not a sales book. It's like a really enjoyable negotiation book, and that way I think it's really accessible for a lot of people to get in, love it, start to use the techniques literally straight away. You can use a lot of the techniques in the book before you even have a sales consult.
Right.
Just start using it with your clients.
Yeah.
In any sort of negotiation you have with them. So it allows you to practice what you see in the book instantly, which is obviously how you get better.
How you get better?
How you get better.
How you get better. That was a technique.
You'll learn this in the book. I will say my only gripe with the book, and one thing I wish was in there, which was it's about negotiation. And I wish that what he'd put in there was whether to go into a negotiation at all.
Okay.
Because that's a really big factor. Because if you don't have leverage in the negotiation, his techniques, they kind of work, but they won't really work. You need to have that. But I noticed that maybe because he comes from a background where like he doesn't get to decide if he's in a negotiation.
Yeah. He's just
like
in one.
He's in one. Whereas obviously in your own life, you can choose whether to enter them or not. My only gripe with the book, but very fun. I would do the book and I would do the masterclass and I would watch the YouTube videos. I would just do the whole thing.
Yeah, he's the man. Okay, so the third book we got here is from friend of the show and just friend James Smith, who is obviously a best-selling author. And it's his first book here. His first book, not a diet book. And this, I think, when it came to nutrition books in the past, for me, it was always one, my way or the highway. It's like very dogmatic, and it was never about principles, or if it was, the principles were so early on, they got drowned out by the methods. And what I mean by that is it was like, okay, we know you need calories are important here, and the law of thermogenesis applies, and we need, if you want to lose weight, you got to have less calories, then, you got to be in a calorie deficit. But Then they went on for the next 99% of the book to talk about, this food here and this diet plan here and mixing this in here and this is the best recipe and this and that. And I think it just took away the core message, which was the principles of nutrition. And I think what James really does in such a fantastic way, and anyone who's viewed his content before, listen to the interviews that we've done with him. We can put these interviews up here or down below if you want to go watch those. But he has just a way of making things so relatable, right? Of using analogies where it's like, oh, that actually makes sense. So, create this deficit here with the calories and what that would look like. Here's an example, and here's another example, and here's another example. And he really drills it home with just like really simple, everyday, mundane examples where you're like, oh, that makes sense. I didn't actually think about it that way, but I totally get it. And I think that is the power of the book. The power of the book is like constant reinforcement of principles in a way that's relatable, that everyone has some instance that they go, okay, that makes total sense. Because other people make analogies, and it might be like some really high level sporting analogy, and you just think, I can't relate to that. I don't really get that. Because it's so much for the everyday person, that's why I think it's done so well overall. And it's not dogmatic, right? This book will be relevant now. It will be relevant in 20, 30 years time. Whereas all the keto books, all the paleo books, all the vegan books, they're trends, right? They go out of fashion. This book is timeless, which I think is what makes it so valuable.
Yeah, I think that this is a book, how I've used it, is that if you're very into nutrition and you're a trainer, you might know a lot of things in the book. But what it can do, which you can't do, is you can recommend or gift the book to clients.
That's a good point.
I guess one of the best things for it, because you can sell like, calories in, calories out. You probably sell like shit, right? But you sell this book, he's really good at selling it. And then you'll often find that the person will come back to you like, dude, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And they'll be like all on the same page with you with nutrition, because they've read the book and they've learned it off the book in a really fun and as convincing way, which he's so good at. So I would recommend this for gifting it to clients and giving it to people that you can't get over the line on how you want to coach them nutrition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously they come to you first and they trust you, but there's an opportunity here for you to be like, hey, James Smith's done a way better job at this than me. Let's let him be the teacher and do the work for them. And it's not like they're going to go disappear and start training with James, because they can't, but you'll just show them and provide them more value, and it'll do the heavy lifting in the work for you.
And it's a bestseller, right? So you're like, oh, look, this is what I think, and this is what this best-selling book thinks as well. And you just get that credibility. Oh, okay, you kind of made this whole thing up.
I think he'll be upset if he hears this, but number 1 times bestseller. Yeah.
Number 1 times.
No, Sunday Times. Number
Times.
1 Sunday Times, which I think is like the New York Times of the UK.
Got it.
Yeah.
It's number 1 somewhere. That's the point.
Yeah. It's a good book. I get it. So number 4 we've got is Atomic Habits by another James Clear. Now this is probably this guy's the preeminent author on anything to do with habit building or habit science. And again, what I love about this book, it's quite easy to read. He uses lots of everyday examples. And I think habits is like such a important part of what you help people with in personal training. In fact, I'd argue that's all you help them with, right? You help them build better training habits, better lifestyle habits. They basically got a bunch of negative behaviors and habits that they want to change, and they come to you to enact that change, to be the catalyst for that change, hold them accountable to that change. And I think really deeply understanding how habits are formed and how they work and what's good practice and bad practice can give you a really great framework to have for your clients and for yourself, right? Maybe there's habits everyone wants to change about themselves, right? No matter how perfect you are. And I think it's, I've got value from the book with habits that I've changed. And I think I've got value being able to give it to our clients and have framework for our staff as well to be able to change habits as well. And if anything you get through it and you don't get any tools out of it, I think just having an appreciation of how much habits actually really run your life creates, all the value that you need from the book.
Yeah, but what I got out of it was he talks about identity in the book. And I think what you'll find is that if you're a trainer or you work in the gym, you and all your friends have such strong identities around being fit. So it's so easy for you to always be like, what would a fit person do? That's just what I do because I'm a fit person.
Yeah.
And when you read the book, you realize, your clients and your prospective clients, like then they're not fit people.
Yeah.
So they don't think, what would a fit person do? And if you can coach them on changing their identity to what would a fit person do at lunch today? What would they do, after work? You'll help them get a bigger change rather than coaching them on every single little thing they need to pick up to be a fit person. If you can start coaching them on their identity, it obviously takes away a lot of those little habits that you do unconsciously. So I had never really heard that concept until I read the book. So that in some ways was a bit life-changing, when I got into that content.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the 5th book we've got here, and one of the books that we read earliest of all the books. This was the first book that we picked up out of this whole list. And I would say, to be fair, because it's been so many years since I've read it, there's not really anything that I can remember specifically from the book that I still use today. It's not to say that that's not the case. It may just be so ingrained at this point that it's there. But I think it was definitely the first book that helped me realize that every conversation that I have with someone is an opportunity to have that conversation better, right? And to understand, okay, where are they coming from? Where am I coming from? How can we both get to the same point and reach an agreement here? Now, people that have not read a book like this, I know reading it for the first time, almost everyone says, wow, there's like something that I definitely learned there that I'm applying straight away. And I know the feeling, I can remember the feeling when I first read this book. It was something, I'm not sure exactly what part it was, but all I remember is thinking for the next month, like, wow, that thing keeps happening from the book. That same thing kept going over and over again. And because I read and understood it, and I knew kind of the action to take when you recognize this trigger, my conversations with people were changing dramatically. And I think if you're frustrated with how your conversations are ending, you're frustrated with your relationships with clients, or they're not getting things like the message is not coming across, and maybe you're butting heads on certain issues, you're frustrated with certain clients, this is a great book to give you frameworks and tools to be able to go, all right, here's how I need to approach this client. Okay, when this trigger comes up, I'm going to try this, and this is going to help get this message across. Extremely valuable from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about why relationships usually end between you and your client, it's almost always some sort of breakdown between the two of you. So maybe some sort of misunderstanding, misinterpretive expectations. There's some sort of breakdown in the end of the relationship. And that's usually why they leave. It's not usually like, oh, I just want to try this different programming.
Right.
There's usually a breakdown in the relationship. And then it's the same thing if you're running a business. I think whatever it is, the vast majority of businesses end up not happening because of a personal change between, say, the owners of the business. It's not usually, like the business strategy or the marketing strategy. No, it's usually a breakdown in the owners of the relationship. So it's a critical book. I do think it's one that, you've got to obviously practice, kind of like the sales book, right? You kind of just like read the book and now you're an expert and you've never spoken to anyone before. I don't think it quite works like that. But at least it opens your mind to, hey, there are some conversations more important than other conversations.
Right.
And that can change very quickly. We've
Yeah.
all had that experience in the gym, right? You're talking to a client, it's all like, oh yeah, the sports, the this, and then they start raising like, oh, my injury, this, all of a sudden you're like, this conversation has changed.
Right.
And now this is a really important one.
Right.
That's what you learn in the book is what to do from there.
Yeah. So I forgot the author, Kerry Patterson, in case I didn't mention it, is the author of Crucial Conversations. Guys, that's it. Those are the 5 books that I think are absolutely essential. If I'm hiring someone into Locker Room, I would say we have the highest standard of personal training in the world. Then these are the books that I'm going to want them to start learning and reading and using. And if you go below,
And you know what as well? I would say it's a red flag if they haven't read any of them.
I'd say so.
It's a red flag.
Yeah.
None of these books, it's a problem. If you're advanced, how could you not have read one of these books?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're especially something like Atomic Habits or Not a Diet Book, being in the
Just
industry.
one of these books you have to have read.
Yeah. And if you haven't, immediately go down below. We've got affiliate codes so we can get money every time you click the link. I'm just kidding. We don't do that. But that's it. Those are 5 really valuable books. So make sure that if you enjoyed it, if you got value, all we ask from you guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, give us a comment. Maybe add a book that, if you're a trainer, add a book down there or add a list of books that maybe we don't know about. We've read a lot of books collectively, but I'm always keen to hear more books.
Nothing better than a good book
Absolutely. And give us a little, this is why we should read it pro tip, one sentence. We'll have a look at it. So appreciate you guys as always, and we'll see you in the next video.